So people always say, Yoni, it's enough with this idea that God needs us and God needs our mitzvahs. And who says it's even true? And where does it say it? And it doesn't even make sense. And God's beyond our understanding. Well, I want you to watch the following clip that was just released on the YouTube channel JTV, obviously by someone who didn't grow up Chabad. He grew up in London. And when he did an interview with Rabbi Manis, his mind was blown. Paradigms were shifted. I've been saying this for a long time. I've been way ahead of the curve here. So please watch this together with me. This is so powerful. Let's watch and listen together. I don't even need to comment because he says everything so perfectly, so well said. This articulates what Chassidus came to introduce to the world and to reveal the personal side of God, and which allows us to love him and to serve him. Here you go. I hope you enjoy.
Ever find your views changing after a debate, whereas before you come in with one view and then you come out
Yes.
with all these different ideas and
Yes.
completely change?
Yes.
Does that often happen?
It doesn't often happen, but it does happen. And in fact, it happened once in an interview that I did where it actually changed my life. It changed my perspective on Judaism. It was actually the culmination of many questions I had, many concerns I had. And without me realizing it, this interview I did with this rabbi, his name is Rabbi Manis Friedman, it was basically on the question of why, okay, I'm convinced there's a God and all that, but why would he create the world? And what I've been told up until that point, and that I think shapes a lot of my, well, had shaped a lot of my and a lot of religious people's worldview, is that God doesn't need anything. He's God. So he creates the world, well, it's for your benefit. It's all for you. And he said, actually, that's not Judaism. And
just look how he's reacting. You could see his face like glowing with perspective changing and tapping into truth, and the way he's sitting there is like radiating from him, like just recalling that first time he heard it in an interview. Look, it's just so amazing. This is exactly what you hope Chassidus accomplishes, and the fact that it's supposed to happen on people. This is so well, all the nuances. Just check it out.
Judaism actually has the opposite premise, that if I create something, I do it because it's my need. I create something out of my need, my desire for that thing, right? So if I create a table, does the table need to be here? Does the table have any needs whatsoever? No. The table only exists out of my need for it. So he said the same thing is true with God. He creates the world because only a creator has a need. So he does it because he needs us, not because we need him. And we exist, a created being exists not because he is needy, but because he or she is needed. And that has radical implications.
Boom, radical implications. And if you just want to say in Hebrew, what he's talking about is Nis'ava HaKadosh Baruch Hu dir b'tachtonim, the fundamental principle which the whole Chassidus is based on. We're here to serve God's desire, God's need, not our need. And you can see he's so alive with it. He's so excited about it, and he's sharing it so beautifully. Let's continue.
And I could talk for hours about the implications that has in one's own life, in how society manifests, how we understand the unique idea of Judaism. But basically, one way of seeing it that can be really life-changing is that if you go around, if you go about your life seeing yourself as needy, you're going to be very stressed, anxious, and depressed. Because all you think about is how many of your needs are being fulfilled or not fulfilled, whether it's in relationships or health or getting a job or whatever, right? And the needs are endless, and it's a stressful life. But here's the point that he makes, and no one...
Oh my God, I love this guy. This guy is he's just nailing it. He heard, and he had an interview with Rabbi Manis, who's explaining Chassidus, who's explaining the exact opposite of what he was always told as a kid growing up about God, how God doesn't need anything and God's perfect. And he's just firing away. explaining to these students, whoever they are, probably somewhere in England.
Could ever disagree with me on this when I say this. What is the one thing that human beings really need to be content? If we could fill this one need, then we'd be happy. So psychologists and scientists and philosophers have tried to answer this question for generations. Some say it's pleasure, some say it's meaning, some say it's power. Here's a radical idea. What do human beings actually need? Nothing at all. You know why? Because I didn't ask to be born.
Which shouldn't be so radical, because if you learn Pirkei Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, what does it say there? Bal karchach atachai. You were born against your will. So you didn't even need to be born. So who needed you here? God.
I never asked, I never needed to be born. So now that I am born, not out of my need to be here, but out of someone else's need, don't tell me that I'm suddenly needy. Oh, you have to get a job. No, I don't. Why do I have to get a job? I don't need to do anything, because I didn't need to be here in the first place. So the reason why it stresses us out so much to be so obsessed with all our needs and feel the birds are like, I can't handle this, and people sometimes break, is because it's not actually true. You're living a lie. It's a radical idea. But actually, what he says is, the truth is, the radical message of Judaism is that you're here not out of your need, obviously. So there's two options. One option is the universe is an accident, it's all a big, there's no God, there's no creator, there's no purpose, which means you don't need it and no one needs it. Option two is there's a creator behind this whole universe that started this whole thing, and you're here because you're needed. Now, what a beautiful way reality suddenly becomes. I'm here not because I'm needy, because I didn't need to be here. So why am I here? Because I'm needed. So I need nothing at all, but I can serve a unique divine purpose that only I can serve and provide the world with. What a beautiful way to look at reality. And it turns out that while human beings may need nothing, knowing that they're needed is actually all they need to get by. So it turns out that human beings can survive even the most darkest of challenges and pains if they know that it's necessary. And if they think that something they're going through is not necessary, it's just random, it's accidental, and it serves no purpose, they can't even handle the slightest of that pain and that challenge. And so it's a radical idea, but actually it makes so much more sense. God needs, I'm not needy. But most religion will tell you, you are the needy one, you need to get to heaven. And God, well, he needs nothing. And if you don't love him, you don't do what he says, you're going to burn in hell forever. What kind of a message is that? It makes God seem toxic, abusive, and life sounds very stressful and burdensome. Alternatively, God creates you because he needs you. So, how do you want to react to that? By the way, we know that applies to parent-child relationships. So on some level, the child is dependent on the parent, at least when they're growing up, for their existence, to exist. And that's true still with us. We do need God to exist. But why are we here in the first place? Because of the deep existential meaning we provide our creator with, our parent with, right? So the parent, in terms of that existential question, we mean so much to our child. And as I say, I could talk about this for a long time, but it's a very powerful way to look at things. Yeah.
So do you agree with Richard?
So this is exactly the effect that Chassidus was meant to have on a person. And this is why it's so necessary to spread. And that's why when the Baal Shem Tov came up to the Heichal Mashiach on Rosh Hashanah, and he said, Emasai Kasimar, when are you coming? What did Mashiach tell the Baal Shem Tov? He didn't say, well, when everyone's religious. He said, when your wellspring spread, when the whole world realizes how desperately I need them, I need the mitzvahs, I need the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach as well, then there will be a radical paradigm shift, because they'll be serving and not looking to be served. And that's the only way a true relationship can happen. This guy is just, wow.